On today's show, we interview the hit songwriter for the Chainsmokers, Shawn Mendez, Dua Lipa, Jason Mraz, and other pop music artists that dominate the charts. During today's show, Emily Warren shares with us how she used the money that she earned babysitting to pay musicians to start a band with her while just in middle school. She explains how hit songwriters get paid and don't get paid. She explains how she gets over writer's block. She explains why she has a vocal coach. And she shares with us about her vault of over 2,000 unreleased songs. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to love today's show.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we have an incredible guest. She is a super successful songwriter, and she's just getting warmed up. She's written hits for Shawn Mendez, the Chainsmokers, Dua Lipa, Jason Mraz, and she made a poor life choice and decided to be on today's show. Emily Warren, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, ma'am?
Thank you. I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, I'm so honored to have you on the show. It's so exciting, and your career is it's just beginning, but you've had so much traction. And I wanted to start, if I could, asking you about this 15-year-old version of yourself who's babysitting,
Yeah.
and you decide to pay a reggae band, I believe, to become Emily Warren and the Betters. Tell us about this story about babysitting money and starting the band.
Yeah, so basically I had written a few songs. I'd just gotten into songwriting because a piano teacher of mine was a songwriter, and I was watching her do it and actually had an aha moment where I was like, oh, wow, people write songs. And that's when I started writing. And after I had gotten a few songs together, my older brothers had a few friends who had been in a ska reggae band. And they were in our house one day, and they were walking out and leaving, and I was like, will you guys play a show with me? And they were all like, no, we won't. And I was like, okay, what if I pay you? And they said, okay, we'll do it. So I obviously had no money. I was like a middle schooler. I think I was probably like 13 or 14 years old, 15 maybe, and started babysitting the neighbors in order to save up enough money so that I could pay them after we did this show. So that was kind of the beginning right there.
Now, you packed the house, I understand. You had a lot of parents that showed up to watch the kids, right, and their friends and your friends from school. And how many people were there, your packed house first big gig with your hired mercenary band?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, it's one of the smallest venues in New York City in the Village. It's like a tiny, tiny hole in the wall. But there was, the capacity is probably like 60.
Okay.
And people were lined up around the door because, like you said, everyone had to come with their parents because we were all super young. So everyone was a group of 3. So I think that was the moment that the band, who thought this was just like their friend's little sister's thing, were like, oh wow, this is actually like a full show.
Well, tell us this then. So you gained some traction. You're kind of gigging. You're playing. You're doing your thing. The band broke up. How did the band break up? What happened? Did you guys get into a creative dispute? Did you have different directions you were going? Was there what happened?
A little bit. I mean, I think I was kind of at a point where by the time we broke up, we'd been playing together for 5 or 6 years around New York, and I was hitting a point where I was realizing how important the writing part itself was to me.
Yeah.
And I was writing the songs kind of pretty much by myself, and then I bring them to the band and we flesh them out. And I think, I don't know, they had a lot of kind of gigging mentality, and I had a lot of writing mentality, and it was just kind of, we were just clashing in that regard. And I was going to college, and wasn't really sure how that was going to shake out in terms of being like a band that was playing and touring. So it was not like dramatic, really. I mean, I think we were all slightly disappointed in the fact that something so fun was coming to an end, but it was kind of the most natural thing at that point.
How did you get discovered via MySpace? What happened? Were you just the queen of MySpace? Were you just how did you get discovered via the vehicle of MySpace?
I don't remember being like particularly popular on MySpace. I mean, we were really kind of geeking all around New York, and I think I barely remember even using MySpace. But basically, this woman named Rhea Pasricha, who was an intern at Atlantic Records at the time, she emailed to my email address saying, "Hey, found Emily and her band on MySpace. Would love to come check out a show." And I was kind of pretending I was my own manager from that email account, so it seemed more professional, doing like a third-person situation. And we got her to the show, and she came, and then she ended up I didn't meet her, but she sent an email after saying, "It's really good, needs improved, like, could use some just, like, locking in, basically, but please stay in touch." And then we kind of fell out of touch. I mean, I never really spoke to her again, and it wasn't until the band split up and I got to college. I went to a music school at NYU, so it was kind of all these kids around me who were doing really, and I remember having this feeling of like, oh, I just got here. We had to share all our music with everyone, and I was thinking, I don't even know what to say. I'm going to get up and play my band that's broken up. I'm basically starting at zero again. So I went back to my dorm room that night and scoured my emails to see if I knew anyone that worked at a record label. And I think I literally typed in records into my email to search, and Rhea's email came up. And I emailed her and said, "Hey, I know we haven't spoken in a while. I've just started kind of like breaking off by myself. I'm starting to write songs with other people. Can I send you can I come in and meet with you?" And she said, "I'm actually not in New York anymore, and I'm just switching jobs today to work, literally on that day, to work for Prescription Songs in LA. But send me stuff anyways." So I sent her music, and she immediately called me back and was like, "Are you published? Are you managed? Can we get you out here?" And that kind of, it was where the ball got rolling. But it was all very serendipitous and kind of crazy that's how we reconnected.
Now, I don't expect you to listen to our show a lot, but we have, just to kind of orientate you to our audience, we have about 500,000 folks that listen to our show, and most of them are entrepreneurs, aspiring musicians, people that are trying to monetize their craft, and a lot of people maybe aren't familiar with how huge Prescription Songs was and is. Could you kind of share what that would be like? If, because for people who are into music, that's incredible. But can you explain for the listeners out there that maybe don't understand how big of a thing Dr. Luke and Prescription Songs was and is at the time?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I that's pretty much the point I was at when she said Prescription Songs. I had to Google it and look, and then it was like, oh, Luke has done every single Katy Perry song, Rihanna, Britney, Miley, every song that was on the radio at that point, he had his hands in. So it was like, I couldn't even, and they were just kind of starting the company, so I couldn't even believe he was willing to sign someone, and it was me. It was kind of like, I remember Rhea kept saying, "I'm going to play your songs for Luke," and I remember laughing, being like, there's no way she's playing my songs for Luke. Like, Luke's not going to hear my songs.
Right.
And then he did, and it was just like, literally, and once I looked him up and kind of knew everything he was doing, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing his song. I mean, I'd go out and his songs were playing in the bar. I'd go to dinner, his songs were playing in the restaurant. Like, complete world domination.
I don't know if and if I'm miscategorizing you, but I've spent an unhealthy amount of time listening to your music, and you it seems like you're like an artist you seem like you're a songwriter first, and maybe an artist second, or maybe the most thoughtful person on the planet first, songwriter second, and then an artist third. How would you classify yourself? Are you more of a songwriter now? Because you are doing your own music too, and it's incredible, it's beautiful. But are you? Would you classify yourself more as a songwriter now, or an artist, or where would you put yourself?
That's, first of all, very kind. Thank you so much. I'm like, I think I always used to say that I was only singing so that I could sing the songs I was writing, and then I kind of fell more in love with being like actually singing, and now for me, the act of songwriting is so therapeutic for myself and I think for the people I'm working with. Like for me, a good songwriting session is when we actually learn something about ourselves and about each other and move forward. And so I've slightly detached from my own artisting, only in the sense that like whenever I feel like there's something I need to say that no one else can say, I kind of put music out. But most of the time, it's the actual experience of the conversation that leads to the song. That's really what drives me. So right now I'm mostly just focusing on working with other artists who inspire me and who have the same desire to kind of like really dig for meaning in songs.
Okay. So let me ask you this: the song "Don't Let Me Down." That song is crazy, by the way. That song is amazing. It's so fun because it's kind of it takes you to a place. It takes you on a story, but then it has this unbelievable bass drop, and you're like, "What just happened here?" That song is super dynamic. I love that song. What does that song mean? What was that song about? And what kind of? I don't. I'm not asking you to share personal conversations, but I mean, what's that song about, and what kind of conversations led into crafting a song like that for the Chainsmokers?
It's not personal at all, I'll tell you, because it's such a ridiculous story. But basically, Scott Harris, Scott Harris, and Drew from the Chainsmokers wrote that song together. And basically, Scott and I had been with a big group of all of our friends. A few weeks before that session, we had been at Coachella. And I don't know if you've been or know about Coachella, but it's actually like a very scary place.
Yeah.
For me, at least, just because there's no service, it's super dusty, and it's like there's this point at night where it's really hard not to lose everyone you're with. And I got lost so many times, and then you don't have any cell service, and you can't find anyone, and it's actually frightening, just because people are like zombies, and I don't know. It freaked me out. So anyways, Scott got lost too, and we were talking about this, and we're actually walking to Drew's house for the session, and we were like, what if we wrote the song that if you were at Coachella freaking out because you couldn't find anyone, and you heard the song and it would calm you down? And we went into the session with that idea, and we wrote Don't Let Me Down. And the craziest thing about that is literally the next year at Coachella, we were standing side stage at the Chainsmokers set listening to Don't Let Me Down being played at Coachella.
No way.
Perfect, full circle, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you ever have writer's block? Do you ever look at a sheet of paper and go, or look at at your console, or sit down with the guitar or the piano and go, I got nothing. Got nothing. Do you ever run into that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have phases. I'm just like 1 week back into a great phase of writing, but a few weeks, I mean, if we were having this conversation a couple of weeks ago, it would have been a totally different situation, just because I get really fatigued when I'm writing songs that are just like songs and not challenging me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of the music that I love is music that kind of like makes me think about something in a new way that I never thought about,
right,
or just kind of says something in a way that I would have never come up with myself. And so I think I don't want to contribute at all to a different kind of music, like songs just for the sake of songs coming out, or songs that are just catchy that don't have much meaning in them, which, by the way, is like a whole amazing thing that some people are really good at and do really well with. But for me, I think if I have too many sessions in a row where I don't feel like pushed or challenged, even by myself, then I get really I think about pivoting careers into painting or something like that. But I've actually just come back from a week at a writing camp with this artist, Lennon Stella, who's incredible. And it just totally reinvigorated me. She's like such a deep thinker, and we kind of had all these epiphanies through songwriting, and now I'm completely in love with it again. But it's literally a roller coaster.
And her name is London Stella. Is that right? London Stella?
Lennon, like John Lennon.
Oh, Lennon. Okay. Well, hey, if you get stuck with writer's block again, Emily, I have 5 kids. I'm 38 years old, okay? I live on if you can picture it, I live on 15 acres behind a wall with trees. And when my wife and I, when we were 18, we started our first company, which became America's largest wedding entertainment company. And I sold when I was 27. So I've kind of been out of the business game for a long time, and I do this because it's interviewing great people like you is a lot of fun. But if you ever want to write a song, you're really stuck and you're going, I need some inspiration. I need a song about waking up at 3 a.m. and stepping on kids' toys and questioning the meaning of life and why it hurts so bad. So if you want to put some song like that, I'm just throwing it out there. You can have the rights for it. I don't want any credits. It's yours.
Thank you. I need that.
Okay, that's if you get to a really dark place and you're just stuck with a wood block and you're going, I want a really simple song. Okay, now what was your first song to hit the Billboard Top 40 or to hit maybe your first cut on an artist that people know? Maybe not I don't think people realize what a cut on an album is like and what a hit record looks like. Can you maybe explain maybe the first big write you did or the first big hit you had and just kind of walk us through that experience?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it didn't end up being like a huge, Don't Let Me Down was the first like big game-changing song for me. But the first time I was like, oh, I'm actually doing this in a real way is I got 2 songs on Jessie J's album, and one of them, Masterpiece, was the single, and it did its thing in the UK and kind of bubbled in the US, but it was more just like that was an artist that I so looked up to and was inspired by, and then to have songs on her album was just like so surreal.
Where did you write with her? Did you travel overseas? Did you write in Wyoming? Did you write in a van down by the river? Where did you guys have that writing session?
She wasn't in the sessions. Those were pitch songs. I wrote Masterpiece with this amazing writer, Britt Burton, the first day she and I met in LA. And then, I mean, I guess to explain too for people who are listening that don't know, like a lot of times, I mean, most artists, except for a few, take outside songs. So writers get together every single day, pretty much, of the week or the weekdays, and write songs, and the best of those songs get sent out to people's managers or their publishers or directly to them, and then if they connect with it, they will cut it, maybe change a few lyrics to make it more personal. But most of pop music is done that way. And then there's obviously like a handful of artists that are either always involved in what they're doing or are completely writing it themselves.
Now, I have to tell you how I discovered you, the writer behind the music here, is one of my clients is Colton Dixon, who is signed on Atlantic Records, and his A&R is David Silverstein. And so
oh my God,
I'm hearing all the time about, hey, you got to listen to the And the Writer Is. So I listened to every single show.
Wow.
All of them. And I got to yours, and I went to college with Ryan Tedder. So Ryan Tedder actually played at my wedding and lived right across the hall from me, and we were good buddies. And so I heard Ryan Tedder's, and I heard yours, and I'm like, I got to get these people on the show. And my kids and I were addicted to Songland. And I just think what Ross has been doing to shine a light on songwriters has been, because I've only known of these things because of my relationship with Ryan back in the day. It's fun to see these songs he released, and no one really knows who writes these songs. Could you share about what role you feel like Ross Golan has played in helping artists to maybe get the, I don't know if it's respect or the credit. I just feel like, I mean, at least from a Grammy perspective, you're now getting credit for these things. Could you explain what kind of impact Ross has made on your songwriting community?
Yeah. Ross is absolutely changing the game. I mean, beyond what you said, which is the Writer Is podcast, which is such a good resource.
Yeah.
Not just for everyone who's interested in this, but like for aspiring songwriters to be able to hear so many different stories and see that it's done so many different ways is incredible. And I think something else that Ross and I've spoken about and that he's constantly speaking about is this kind of unfair treatment of songwriters, how they're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of like how we get paid and how we get treated when deals are being made.
Right.
And I think airing that on the podcast and in his actions is really good for young songwriters who are thinking, I'm going to give up because I can't make any money doing this. It's like we've lost and almost lost so many amazing writers because they can't survive. just can't even pay
Tedder
rent.
was working at
do the
Pottery
stuff.
Barn forever. He worked at Pottery Barn in like Nashville. Well,
No way.
I remember he landed a cut on Bubba Sparks, his album called She Tried. That was the
Yeah.
first big hit for him. And we're going, all the guys in college are going, so why are you working at Pottery Barn? You couldn't, it's like, you couldn't figure out. And could you explain how
Yeah.
artists get paid? Because there's no tour, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's no song without there's no song without a songwriter. There's no tour without a songwriter. There's no merch without a songwriter. There's nothing. There's no album without a songwriter. So the songwriters are kind of like the rebar and the concrete and the foundation of everyone's success. But how do you get paid? If I stream a song right now on Spotify, if I'm going up there right now and I'm streaming your newest album on Spotify, how do you get paid?
It's pretty nuts. So basically, streaming is master side. Okay, let me see the clearest way to explain this. Basically, there's publishing side and there's master side.
Got it.
Writers and producers have a piece of the publishing, which is money from radio, money from sync, film and TV. Like anytime the song is played in a public place, and then master side is song sales and streaming and stuff like that. So I mean, I would get for a stream like a fraction of a cent, which is crazy.
I pay a company called CustomChannels.net. I have there's a company I started called Elephant in the Room. It's a chain of men's grooming lounges, and I know you travel to Oklahoma a lot for tourism, but next time you come here for tourism to see the sod farms, I'll give you a tour. And we have about 4,000 members there, and we play music overhead, and I personally curate the playlist. I choose every song. So I've got 4 or 5 songs that you have written that are playing, and I pay about $1,000 a month to play stuff that you have written and other people have written. Do you get paid more off of that? I mean, like Side Effects. There we go.
Yeah.
The Chainsmokers Side Effects. We added that to the playlist here. I want to say about 10 months ago. Or maybe 12 months ago. How do you get paid on that? Is it more if it's through something like that, or is it? Do you know?
I mean, so if you're probably paying a fee to a PRO like ASCAP or BMI or something like that.
Yeah, it's $1,000 a month.
And so then so that's how they then have like tracking, and that's how they kind of split up the money that they make to people depending on which songs they're playing the most and stuff like that. But the problem is, a songwriter can't really make any significant money unless they have a hit on radio.
Yeah.
So like, which is beyond messed up. And here's like how that started, which is back in the day when like, let's say like Phil Spector's producing some Whitney Houston's album. I'm making this up. I don't even know. I don't think he did.
Sure. Yeah. Go with it.
He would get paid a fee. Just a fee, and not get any of the back end, not get any publishing. You would just get paid a flat fee to like bring in musicians, arrange the songs, like do that kind of stuff. And the songwriters would get all the publishing. But then as the role of the producer became more kind of integral, and they were writing / they were the ones coming up with the chords, and then the sessions now, like whenever every day I go into a session, there's a producer there. So then they started to be like, all right, well, we need some of the publishing so we can make money on this depending on how well the song does. So they started cutting into the publishing that used to be just for the writers. The issue with that, which I don't believe that producers don't deserve publishing. I think they do. But the issue with that is the songwriters just gave up a piece of the pie, which is often an equal piece to what they're getting now. Yeah. And didn't get any compensation. So we don't get any fee in return. Like we didn't make a trade. It was just like, okay, now you're getting part of what we normally get. And the biggest problem, there's two problems with that. One is when the deal is being done, like let's say Rihanna is taking a song that I've written. Yeah. Rihanna's manager and label and all these people are only communicating with the producer because that's the person they're buying the song from. So things happen like he'll go in and cut the song with her, and they'll change all these parts. And I don't technically even have to know about it because no one's thinking to loop me in because I'm not the person doing the deal, and yet it's a song that I've written. So that's the first problem. The second problem, which is the real issue, is if this producer is getting like 10 grand for a song on Rihanna's album,
Yeah.
let's just say, and let's say the album does okay, but like it's track 9 and it's never made into a single and it just gets like however many streams on Spotify. If that song doesn't take off at all, the producer will have gotten 10 grand, and the writer, who barely had a say in whether or not that became track 9 on the album, gets pretty much nothing and gives away a song they've written.
So
like,
how did you
we'll get like $100?
When did you get to a place where you realized that you wouldn't be homeless, or have you gotten to that place yet? Because you've had some major rights, but the way you guys get paid is jacked up. I mean, when did you get to a place where you could finally have a little bit of financial peace and you're like, okay, because I know you don't do this for the money. I know it's cathartic. I know it's poetry. I know it's something you give to the planet. It's a gift to people. I know that just by hearing enough interviews with you. But when did you get to a place where you thought, I am not going to be homeless this week? Yay.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make any money until a year and a half. Don't Let Me Down was a hit. That's another thing. It takes forever for the money to come. But
jeez.
I was lucky in the sense that I started doing it kind of when I was in college, so I didn't have that much time between graduating and when I started making. I mean, I had signed a publishing deal that kind of held me over.
Yeah.
But my friend, I mean, I tell this story all the time, but my friend Caroline, who I wrote New Rules with, we had written New Rules, and 3 months later, we'd written new rules, and an A&R had come in and said there was no chorus, so we literally just like forgot about the song. And 3 months later, Caroline walked into a session in London and told the producers, who are friends of hers, I'm quitting songwriting. I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm not making any money. I don't want to ask my parents to borrow any more money. I have to know when to be realistic and call it. And she had canceled her next 2 months of sessions and taken a job as a waitress. And they were like, you can't do that. You're too good. Like, the world needs you. Don't give up. And, like, everything will be different if you just wait, like, give it one more year.
Yeah.
And they wrote a song that day called In It. This is another crazy full circle moment, but they wrote a song that day called In a Year From Now. And literally the day that New Rules went #1 on radio, she had her phone like popped up a memory, it does, and it popped up the lyric sheet from In a Year From Now. They had written it 1 year to the day.
No
which
way.
Is absurd, but yeah, totally absurd. I told her the other day, I was like, you need to start writing more songs about the things that you want to have happen, because that seems to work for you. But
that's amazing.
The real point is Caroline, who's seriously like probably one of the best songwriters on the planet, certainly one of the best songwriters I've ever worked with, was about to stop writing songs when she had already written New Rules, which is just like, it shouldn't be that way. Like, there should have been, in 8 years of her getting cuts on people's albums, enough money to survive. And so Ross is actually doing a lot for that. I mean, just in terms of...
Are you guys going to get paid when artists perform? Is that going to ever happen? Do you see that happening where when an artist goes out and fills out an arena, and they're selling merch and do you ever see a time and place where you as a writer could get like a 360 piece of the merch and everything that's sold at that concert?
I mean, that would be amazing. I've had lyrics that I've written turned into like logos.
Yeah.
That again is like track 13 on the bonus version of an album that I'm seeing no money from. So
come on.
That's amazing. Yeah, but the one thing that we are talking about, and I'm really happy we're having this conversation, because I was talking about this like 3 days ago, and I need to be inspired to get it done today. But
yeah.
We were talking about starting a songwriters union where if we all agree that we will not accept people taking our songs unless there's a fee,
yep,
just like there is for producers, then there will be no, like, people will have to pay fees because otherwise there's no songs for them.
Tell me this. Am I incorrect by saying the songwriting community is much smaller than people think, but it has a bigger impact than you think? I mean, isn't there basically about 500 people in that niche, maybe 300 people that you guys are consistently writing what is considered top 40, but there's not like thousands of you, right? Isn't there about 300 to 400 of you?
Right. Yeah. If even, I mean, it's a pretty small squad for sure. I was listening. Everyone kind of knows everyone or knows about everyone.
I was listening to one of the And the Writer Is, and it was the second one that Ross had recorded the second episode. and he was doing the interview, and he mentioned Ahmad Royal, and then Busby, and a couple guys that Colton Dixon was writing with, and I'm like, I don't work with a lot of pop artists at all. I'll call it one. And I keep hearing the same names, and I'm like, this is crazy. It is so small. It is like a high school I mean, it's like a small high school.
That's like, I mean, that's when Rhea first hit me up about Luke, I ended up going down a rabbit hole on Wikipedia and just saying, like, you'd click one person's name and then see that they're on all these songs, and you'd see who they'd written with and click that name, and then it was like all the other songs. Like, it's a very small squad for sure.
Well, I have 3 final questions for you, and then I'll let you get back to being Miss Wyoming here. One is you decided to become an artist or release. You've been an artist the whole time, you know, but you've decided to release your own work. Where you're not writing for other people for some of your music. How do you decide what song to release for another artist and what song to keep? Because like the song "Ritual" that you put out there recently. Or I don't know. I just like, okay, this one, "A Side Effects," is just a beautiful song. I don't see you in the video. I want to see you. I don't see you. I want to see you. And then you have something like "Ritual" that's your song. How do you decide which ones you keep and which ones you give away? Because they got to feel like your babies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty most of the time when I'm going into a session, I'm detached in the sense that it's something I care about, but just because I don't want things to be complicated, when I really want to write for myself, I kind of go in specifically for that. There was a couple songs on my album, 2 songs, a song called "Just Click" and one called "Not Ready to Dance," that had been written for Pitch like 6 years prior. That I just always kept being like, I don't want this person to cut it, I don't want this person to cut it. That made me realize, okay, I obviously want to sing this song. But in the case of the "Ritual" song and "Side Effects," and actually "Capsize," the song I did a while ago with a band called Friendship, I had just kind of gone into the writing session and done a demo vocal, and then Ritual, Chainsmokers, and Friendship all had decided to keep me on it, which I'm not always down for. It has to kind of be the right song and kind of go with my vision of myself. But yeah, that's always really fun because then I don't have to be the one that's like, I don't want to sing this. So those are all great, really, really fun, and obviously like gives me a cool chance to come out and like sing one song with people at their shows or whatever it is. So that's always just a good time. Now,
I saw an interview you did with Valerie Morehouse, who we've recently booked to be on the show. She'll be on the show here soon. And
amazing.
Your voice is awesome. I don't know if you're aware. You're kind of sneaky awesome. Like your voice is. I'm not ripping Rihanna. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like your voice is kind of like Mike Posner's sneaky awesome. Like I don't think people realize how great Mike Posner's voice is, how great your voice is. It's really sneaky good. Do you work with a vocal coach, somebody like Valerie, or do you do it on your own? I mean, talk to me about maybe what someone like Valerie does, and do you have a vocal coach or?
Yes, Valerie is my vocal coach. She is so ridiculously amazing. My dad never let me take voice lessons when I was younger, I'm glad he didn't, because he wanted me to figure out my own voice before I had someone teaching me. And then I had done a few voice lessons with like random Valerie and I talk about this all the time, but I had done lessons with these teachers who were voice teachers to the stars and all these things, and was always leaving being like, that didn't feel helpful, or like, I don't even know why I can sing fine. I don't know why I'm taking lessons. But Valerie is Drew's voice teacher from the Chainsmokers. And so she came, I went on tour with them a couple of years ago, and I remember just hearing her talk to him and talking to other people, explaining like the actual anatomy of the larynx and your throat and what's happening when you're singing and why you shouldn't do certain things because it makes it harder to sing and then you can't hit certain notes. And I remember watching her and thinking, okay, that I'm interested in, because the only way I personally can learn anything is when I fully understand the whole picture and it's explained.
Got it.
And voice lessons with Valerie are so amazing. it's not just like running through scales like a lot of teachers do and then not explaining what you're doing right or wrong.
Right.
It's very scientific and very comprehensive, and I've literally cried in voice lessons with her because I'm hitting notes I've never hit before. She's just the most incredible teacher. I feel very lucky to work with her.
Well, I'm gonna sneak in just a couple questions, and I'll let you hang up on me, okay? I heard
please.
you've written over 900 songs. 900 songs.
It's nearing 2,000 now.
Okay. So I'm old school. I'm getting old information here. I just wanted to ask you, the songs that you don't release, could I have them?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kidding. But seriously, what do you do with these songs? How come we can't hear them? Why are we being starved and deprived? I mean, we've put out almost 2,000 of my podcasts, and we had to shelve a few of them for various PR reasons or whatever. But you know, at the end of the day, and that's not 2,000 songs. Why can't we hear them? What do you do with them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they're definitely not all good. That would be
bogus.
I like to think
Bogus.
only good ones are coming out.
Bogus. The woman only writes great things.
No, I mean, especially at the beginning, Scott Harris, who I was talking about before, who I wrote Don't Let Me Down with, who's like, we fully came up together, and he's the best. But we used to write these songs that were so ridiculous and so bad, and then be so frustrated that no one was cutting them. And I listen now, and I'm like, what were we talking about? But there's a lot of them are practice that kind of gets you to the good ones.
Okay.
And then a lot of them, it's a huge disappointment that they don't come out, genuinely. And I, like, whenever I'm at a writing camp or I'm in a session, I always ask the writers I'm working with to play me music because I feel the same way as you. I'm always like, these songs shouldn't just be sitting on the hard drive. I need to hear. But we're all scared of releasing stuff or putting stuff out because there's a chance that it might get cut by someone at some point. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely devastating. That's definitely why I put those two songs on my album too, because I felt like if no one wants to cut these, especially, I think they're so special that I'd rather them just be out in the world than like hope that one day Rihanna's going to cut it.
Well, the way you're shooting your videos are beautiful. They're really well done, and
thank you.
I think that I would like to encourage the listeners to check out. I'd love the listeners just to say, hey, listen here. Just plan your weekend. All you got to do is just block out 3 hours and just listen to all of Emily Warren's stuff. But maybe we can ask them to listen to one particular song. Is there a particular song that you've recently released that you might say, hey, this is something, because we all know New Rules. If you've had a car, you know, in the last 5 years or the last 3 years, you've heard that song, Dua Lipa, you've heard that. We all know about the Chainsmokers. We all know about Shawn Mendez. We know about these big hits. But is there something that you've personally written for yourself, that you've written and recorded and put out there that you would like for us to check out?
With my own voice on it, you mean?
Oh, yeah.
Great question. I think trying to decide between two, but on
we'll go
my
with
album,
two.
I think I gotta do two. Not Ready to Dance, the one I mentioned before, is like one of my. I learned a lot in writing that song, just in terms of like how important to me the storytelling is. I think I just had so much fun putting that song together and making every single line support the idea and lead to the chorus, basically. So that's I'm proud of myself for that one.
Okay.
And then The Point is the other song on my album that I just feel like I wrote that actually with my boyfriend who produced it, and we just it was one of those epiphany moments where we were just learning from what we were writing, and the song was just kind of coming through us. So that's another favorite of mine. Those would be the two. Well,
Miss Wisconsin, or Miss Wyoming. It could be Miss Wisconsin. Miss New York, now Miss...
Everyone says that.
Wyoming. You do. You kind of sound like you are from... I grew up in Minnesota, and you have kind of that Minnesota-Wisconsin vibe. Did you spend some time up there or something?
No.
Really?
But
you just got the vibe. You could fit right in there with Finn and Bjorn and Shaplusky and all my buddies growing up. Rauschendorfer.
I need to get over there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thrive Nation, if you have yet to check out Emily Warren's music, check out the two songs she recommended, Not Ready to Dance by Emily Warren and The Point by Emily Warren on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you can hear great music. iTunes, check her out. This lady is a powerhouse when it comes to writing pop music hits and just great songs. And, well, we like to end each and every show with a boom. And so now, without any further ado, here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom.